Hello, everybody. Happy Sunday. Coming to you live. This is Dr. Elsie Coe. We're talking about can administrators and doctors get along? I've been on both sides of the table. I don't know about you, but we all have been through, I think, seeing this happen where doctors feel like administrators are not listening, non-clinical administrators feel that doctors are difficult. And I'm here with an expert to tell you that this could all be much easier, and we could all get along. And my name is Dr. Elsie Coe. I am the founder and CEO of Lead Physician Leadership Program for Physicians, the CMO of American Endovascular and Amputation Prevention. I also have a YouTube channel. Go check it out, and you can be notified anytime there's a new video. Lead Physician is all about bringing passion, purpose, and potential back to our physicians. So I'd like to introduce to you Meryl Moss. Before I bring her on here, she's got a master's in public administration from Harvard. She's got her executive master's from healthcare leadership at Brown, where I did my master's, and she's also a certified coach. She's been an executive vice president and COO of Coastal Medical. She's been there for 23 years, recently retired, and now she's an executive coach, motivational speaker, and consultant. So without further ado, let me bring her on board here. Meryl, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I'm I'm a big fan. I love the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. We've spoken before, and I've known you for a long time now since we both were at Brown. I wanted to ask you, you have this knack. You've worked with physicians, physician organizations. You've been in, working over, I think, 750 employees over how many offices? 26 offices, I think you said. Tell us how you've been able to engage physicians. You had such an interesting path. Tell us about how this all came about and how you've been able to and get them to do what they wanted to, what you wanted them to do.
Yeah, I think it's all about having a team and actually listening to each other. I was telling you a story yesterday that we moved from fee-for-service to shared savings. So, population health management, Coastal is a primary care organization. So, it was easy for us to embrace population health, but the systems that we had in place for fee-for-service were all designed for fee-for-service, and they weren't easily adaptable to this new model. I was very lucky at Coastal because physicians ran the company. The CEO was a physician, always a physician. And for me, I always felt strongly that physicians were able to have the patient in mind. They were the ones that were meeting with the patients every day. They knew what was needed. And so not to have their voice at the table was actually just silly.
Right.
I was telling
we all know that doctors can be difficult. I know. I mean, I was one of them before. So how do you how do you get them, keep that mindset, but at the same time deal with difficult personalities?
I think you have to establish trust. It can't be a fake thing. Like if I say to you, I am really, really interested in what your thinking is about this, and I'm open to you and I'm listening to you, I think that that's the beginning of establishing trust.
I wrote down some notes from the last time we spoke, Meryl. So I want to go through some 5 key things that I thought you said, which really resonated to me from the standpoint of not just a physician, but somebody who works on the C-suite level. So let's talk about each one of these, if that's okay. Number 1, you said give each other the benefit of the doubt. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, how often you can just think about a million examples where you're in some kind of an environment and you start to have all these assumptions in your head. You're telling yourself a story. This is why they do this. This is why the physician's saying this. This is why the administrator is saying this. And I think just suspending the doubt just allows you to have space to have the conversation. And, that's not rocket science.
But we don't do it.
What?
It's so much, it's like a habit, right? It's changing the habit. Giving each other the benefit of the doubt. I love that. Yeah. We come with so much assumptions, and just because they weren't, just because they said no before doesn't mean they're going to say no next time. And I've heard physicians say, you know what, I don't even bother asking the administrators anymore because I know what the answer is going to be. It's going to be no. So
Yeah,
I
so
know you have something to say about that.
yeah, well, think about, how do you create shared meaning? Because it's not binary, right? It's not like yes or no. It's,
Mhm.
maybe physicians are seeing an area that has to be changed. Well, maybe you can't make it perfect, but maybe we go to here. Or
Yeah.
maybe we say, let's do these 3 steps now, reevaluate, and these 3 steps later. I mean, there's so many possibilities that this idea of yes or no, which I think we get trapped in, and it's probably because of our egos.
Yep. So true. So I tell us stories about when doctors, from administrative standpoint,
Mhm.
you said doctors would say no to you before you even finish what your pitch. So tell us, you told me this before, but I want you to tell everyone, what did you do going forward? Because you were tired of hearing them say no from the start.
I think it was less that, how do you engage people? So the pitch, right? Why do they need my pitch? What we really need is we have a problem. We need to organize and solve the problem. And so bringing physicians in and saying, okay, we're framing the problem. This is the problem we have. What do we do? How do we
Right,
solve it together?
right,
I think it creates, again, it's not like you and them, me and you,
right,
right or wrong.
right.
It's, how do we organize and solve the problem together? And as we're discussing it, how do you create the environment that we can listen to each other?
Right. And when you told me before that there was an instance when you said, "You know what, before I just let me finish." I know you approach this doctor, say, "Doctor, let me just say something and please don't say no first. Just before you say no, I have something to tell you. Let me listen. Hear me out first." And I think that worked because, you're already preparing them not to say no.
Well, a lot of people in work doesn't mean just doctors. A lot of people are introverts. And
Yeah.
what that means is people need to process information. Well,
Yes.
by putting people on the spot and saying, "Hey, I need an answer now. Tell me yes or no." I mean, I think the reaction becomes a defensive one.
Love it. Yeah.
What I learned over time is to say, can you think about this for a couple of days? And I
Yeah.
did this with people I worked with at all levels. And
Yeah.
then let me talk to you on Monday. Tell me
Yeah.
what you think. Think about it. And I think that that's more, again, we're getting into respect. I
Yeah.
respect you enough to be able to say, hey, would you take a little time with this thing and think about it? And maybe you'll come back with something very different. I don't know.
That's right. Right. Listen, you told me sometimes there were ideas that came up that you didn't even think about, and because you were, be curious. Here's one of the things that I wrote. But this is out of order now, but you said curious and dive deeper because there are times when if you go there with an open mind and say, there's something that they might be thinking about that I don't know about. So
Mhm,
I'm going to be open. I'm going to be curious, and I'm going to dive deeper into why they're saying no because there might be a really good reason that we're not thinking about.
mhm. Well, I
So I
think, what's your job? What's your role? And I
Mhm.
think that, if we could all stop to think about what's our role. For me as an administrator, my role was to organize the work and come up with a solution with everyone involved. I didn't have to be the expert. Again, that's, I know, another point that you bring up. So by being an expert, I bring my whole right and wrong into the room. So then I don't want to listen because I want people to agree with me. But if I
right,
can, take off the ego suit and hang it in the closet, and I can come and say, I got this problem I'm really thinking about, and being open to what the solution is. It's not about me, it's about the work.
right, right. And you also mentioned to me that just because I'm going to put this as the real three, but
Mhm.
listen more, and listening doesn't mean that you're agreeing. Can you
Right.
talk about that?
Right. And I think that that goes on both sides. I had a great mentor who taught me this and said, just because we're having the conversation with this person, just because we want to hear all their issues, doesn't mean that we're agreeing with them. And of
Right,
course, so many times you're going into one of these discussions thinking, I know what they're going to say. Again, story in your head. And then you find out that it isn't anything that you thought. And just by listening, actually, you're creating trust. And I think that's what you're really trying to get to, right? You're
Right.
trying to create trust
You're
between
trying to build a
administrators.
relationship. Yep.
Right.
Yeah. And then this is kind of going back to what you're saying about being an expert,
Mhm.
but it's changing how you lead. Yes, we're all experts in
Mhm.
our field. I mean, doctors came out when we are experts. We're supposed to have all the answers,
That's right.
right, in our minds. But then we got to step back and say, you know what, there are things that I don't know, and we need to talk. The way we lead is not by telling; it's by facilitating. Can you talk about that?
Well, I think it's almost impossible to be an expert in everything. And healthcare is super complex. We're not in a factory making widgets where we just say, this is the way you do it. There's so much nuance to this. So if you go in as an expert and it's only right or wrong, eh, I don't think you're ever going to come up with the right answer. And what's going to happen is that if you say, I've made the decision how you're going to do it, everyone around you is going to tell you no and tell you why you shouldn't do it. So
Right.
I think what we found over time, and I think this applies to everyone, but especially working with physicians, is you bring stakeholders in and you facilitate the discussion so everybody has a say. So
Yeah.
we don't have to have
That's
people.
That's why I wrote here number 5, which is the last one. Ask physicians what is needed. Ask them, and then have them participate.
Mhm. Yeah, I told you we had the situation at Coastal where we had to change things. And we as an executive team got together and said, okay, these are the things we could do to help our offices. We could centralize these particular services. When we went to them, it was completely different. The things that we thought of, they did not want us to do. And the things that they thought of, we never would have thought of. And we did what they wanted. We did it because we thought, we have so many things to do. Let's pick the things that they want to do. And it was incredibly successful.
Wow, that's amazing. So what was in the end like? What was your relationship like with the physicians and the physician groups? And like as you reflecting back on your time there,
Mhm,
um, what were some not just what was your relationship with like
mhm,
what was it like dealing with those big hurdles because you had a lot of change that occurred in
mhm,
code.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it's fun. My son has this thing that he has in his mind. The obstacle is the way. How do you overcome the obstacle, and how do you learn from it? And I think the same thing can be said here. I think the most important thing for me that I learned is that patient care comes first.
Yeah.
Everything else is noise.
Hmm.
Everything else is noise. How are we caring for patients? It's not about silos, and it's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's not about power. We're all in it. We have a sacred mission.
Hmm.
That's what we're here for. And we're here to touch people's lives in positive ways, and we're here to do it together. And I think that that's what I learned.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah.
uh, and listen, if anyone out there has a topic on physician leadership, please reach out to me at info@drlcco.com and check out our website at leadphysician.org if you're interested or you as an organization are interested in getting physician leadership training. So thank you. Any last words that you might have for our audience before we close here?
I think physicians don't have to be the negative voice, and that's what shuts things down. I think come with an open heart, come participating, take some deep breaths, and you don't have to be right. This isn't life or death here where we're changing systems. And just having your presence in an open way is just so important to the outcome because what you think is meaningful and your voice is really important. So don't give up.
Thank you, Meryl. How can people reach out to you? Because I know you're a consultant to organizations and to physicians, and you're an ICF coach. How can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I love doing physician coaching. It is very exciting for me to support physicians as they move into leadership roles. Feel free to connect through LinkedIn with me, and I would be more than happy to have a conversation
Okay,
and support you.
great. Thank you, everybody. Until next Sunday, take care.